Hello and welcome to this presentation. My name is Vijay and this video is about my mandate 3 which was genetic algorithms and prisoner's dilemma. So let's get started. So the intent of this mandate is to showcase something that we found interesting and to correlate those concepts through other concepts which are discussed in class, in particular the prisoner's dilemma and strategies. So we're going to look at how genetic algorithms can be used to find optimal or close to optimal strategies in certain game theoretic situations with a special emphasis on few strategies of playing the prisoner's dilemma game. So let's go into that in more detail. So first of all, let's look at what prisoner's dilemma is in short. So this is the scenario here. There are two quote unquote prisoners, Bob and Alice, and the idea is if both of them testify, they both get a long sentence in prison. But if one of them testifies and the other one doesn't, then the one who doesn't testify goes off scot free. So the one who defects goes off scot free, and the one who cooperates suffers. And if both of them cooperate, they get a short sentence each. So the idea is you want to cooperate with the other person, but due to a rationality, both of them would eventually defect. So that's how it works. So we can represent that here in terms of this score matrix. So here C is cooperate and D is defect, as you can see. So obviously going to prison is not a positive thing. So we've adjusted the weights accordingly. So if both of them cooperate, they get 5 points each, and this represents maybe a shorter sentence. But if both of them defect, they get a pretty long sentence, and that's 3 and 3. However, if one of them cooperates, in this case, for example, if Alice cooperates and Bob defects, Bob can walk away scot free with 10 points, whereas Alice has to suffer with 0, and so on. And it's a symmetric game, so the reverse is also true. So there are many strategies to play this game. So one of them is, for example, all C, where you always cooperate in the hope that your other person also starts to cooperate. However, as we will see, this can be easily exploited by the agent. If they play only defect, then D and C would get you 10 points. Similarly, you have all D, where they only defect, in which case, if you cooperate, you will be at the risk of missing out. So you would always defect. And there's also random, which is you do not know how the other agent will play, and you have to play accordingly. And there's also one new strategy which is theoretically not possible, but we have put it here because we can simulate it. And that's something which I found interesting. That will come up in the code review. So let's look at genetic algorithms now at a very high level and see how that is used in our simulations. So this is how it works. You have initial population to which you score it and scale it and retain a good performing samples, select the parents and produce the crossover. So much like how reproduction works, where you have parents and general, you try to simulate that here. So here's a definition from the MathWorks website. It's a method for solving both constraint and unconstrained optimization problems that is based on natural selection, which is the process that drives biological evolution. So the key point here is that the genetic algorithm repeatedly modifies the population of individual solutions. And what has been shown in practice as well is that these kind of natural or nature law abiding methods are very useful to get certain close to optimal algorithms for many problems. And we will see here also that it provides some very interesting solution to the playing prisoner's dilemma strategies. So here are the key elements of a genetic algorithm. First, you need a genetic representation of a solution to codify this. You also need a function to generate new solutions, a fitness function that tells you how good that particular solution is, a selection function that is to select the best possible offsprings, crossover, like I said, like how reproduction works, and you also have mutation, where you can change this genetic representation somewhat, which may not be called for in quotes. So, game theory and genetic algorithms are very closely linked. There have been many research papers that cite this. One of them is, for example, this by Hassan and et al. They said that we found that game theory is tightly related to evolutionary algorithms, especially genetic algorithm. This was mainly utilized for finding an absolute optimal strategy by virtually applying a game against a known strategy, which is exactly what we're going to be doing here. So, let's now look at the code review and let's look at some of the results of our simulation. So first of all, let's look at the fitness .py file. So this basically tells us what we're going up against. And by we, I mean the agent here. So this is the score matrix from earlier. And the thing to be noted is that the first element is what we really should be looking at because that represents our score as the agent, right? So the first is all D, where the opponent plays only D. Next is all C, which the opponent plays only cooperation. The third one is what's known as the mirror. So what is theorized here is that there is a quote unquote oracle that knows exactly what you're going to play, and you have to play against yourself as the agent. You have to play against yourself, And so we can see, right, if you have to play against yourself, only these two are the possible entries, which is CC and DD, and obviously CC is better. So you want to see more Cs here, right? And against all D, you can't play C because you get exploited. So you should play more of Ds here. And to exploit the C, you should play more of C. So you should play more of D here so that you can get this DC case. So with that in mind, let's now look at the transformations. So like I mentioned, there's mutation and crossover. So this is mutation. So what we do is we have a probability for mutation, which is in this case 25%, and we sample from that probability. So we take a random index. If that is C, convert that to D, and if that is D, convert it to C, like that, respectively. And we also mentioned genetic representation. That's going to be a string of C's and D's, right? Next, we have randomly crossover to gene strings. So again, there's another associated probability, which is 75%. If we sample above that, then what we do is we take a random index and we copy half of the parent one. So parent one first half, parent two second half, parent two first half, parent one second half, like that. So that's how we cross over. Now let's look at the entire code itself. So we have number of episodes, the population size, the gene size, which is a 40 length string, and K, which I'll come to now. So the main meat and potatoes of this algorithm is you get a population and you start to iterate over episodes. So you sort it by the particular scoring function or fitness function you have. This could be either one of score against all D, score against all C, score against mirror, and so on. When you get that, you get the top K performer. So that's where K comes from, and that basically is your elitism constant. So you take the top K and you pass it straight to the next iteration, and you sample across the rest, and you shuffle them, and you can mutate them and you can crossbreed them. So that's what we do here. We take the remaining population and then we start to cross over them. And when we get these crossed over pairs, we then apply mutation to them. So you can also sample a part of this and mutate that. I just mutated it here completely. So at the end, what we get out of the algorithm is we get the top performing string, the top performing agent, the max scores and the average scores, which we can then plot. So there were 3 experiments, one against all D, one against all C, and one against mirror. Now, yeah, let's look at the results. So this is the top D's contender. So like we mentioned, there should be more of D's, which you can see here. And what is more important or pertinent rather to this is that there were more D's now than there were in previous epochs. So when you print the verbose thing, I could see that. So that is one. And next we have top C, where again you see there are more D's than C's. In fact, there are more D's than top D. So what I think is top D should learn a little bit more. And next we have the mirror one. So like I said, you should play more of C's over here than D's because you get more score. And you can see there are more C's as well. So we can see emergence of some of the strategies which are discussed in class and have also been discussed in literature, where the best strategy against all C is to play all D, best strategy against all D is to play all D only, and mirror is to play itself, so only C's. So with that said, let's now look at the results. So what we've plotted here is the max scores and average scores over time, so over 20,000 epochs in this case. Let's look at all C first. So this is the max score of all C's. As you can see, there has been a steady increase, and this will only get better with epochs. And then this is the average score, which varies a lot depending on the mutations, but we can see it's not constant, which means that there has been mutation and there has been crossbreeding, which is what is important here. So this was average C. This was average C, sorry. Next, this was the mirror one, which I just showed. And we also have max mirror, which also keeps on increasing. We can also compute the percentage accuracy at this point because the maximum will be 3 into that size. Next, you have max D. So you can see this has also been increasing. And what I found very interesting is it increases in steps, as you can see. And average D also fluctuates, but has a peak around 15 to 16,000 epochs, somewhere around here. So those were the results of this. As you can see, genetic algorithm is doing pretty well for this task, and with a change in hyperparameters and a tweak in the way it's mutated and crossbred, we can have some very interesting results, not just for this, but also in an iterated case if we start to include memory into this. So IPD will come into play there. So let's move on. So these are the references. I have included these slides also in the video description. Thank you. So unfortunately, this isn't in class, so I can't take any questions in person, but please feel free to put it in the video description if you have any. Thanks again for watching.